I'm into WTOL 11 Plus. Right now, we are diving into new information in the murder of 13-year-old Kei'Mani Latique.
It's a heart-wrenching story. A young girl whose tragic disappearance and death has deeply affected our community. We're breaking down the timeline of events, the ongoing investigation, and the community's response to this devastating loss.
So here's what we know today. A judge has ruled Kei'Mani's grandmother, Dorothy Latique, will take custody of the teen's body and estate. Her mother argued she heard she would not be invited and wanted permissions to go with another funeral service.
The grandmother also said there would be a public funeral for Kei'Mani on Friday, April 11th. No specific details have been announced, though.
And there are signs of the pending demolition of the home where police found Kei'Mani's body. City crews put up fencing around the burned out building in East Toledo. We're told it'll come down in the next 3 months. Now, Kei'Mani's story has touched so many people in our community, and there continues to be calls for justice and accountability.
While her dad is charged with killing her, there are still unanswered questions from the community. Let's take a look back at the investigation so far. Kei'Mani's grandmother, Dorothy Latique, reported her missing in the early morning hours of Tuesday, March 18th. By just after 4 o'clock that day, Toledo police put out an alert on social media. By
Saturday, March 22nd, 4 days later, Kei'Mani's family intensified their efforts. Volunteers joined in a public search. And her mother, Tiara Caston, expressed concerns over her daughter's disappearance. It would be 2 days later, on Monday, March 24th, that police would find Kei'Mani's body inside a burned-out house in East Toledo. The man identified as her father, Darnell Jones, would be charged with murder that night.
The next day, Tuesday, March 25th, Columbus police spotted Jones in Shorten North. Body camera video shows Jones appear to reach for a gun. Officers shot him multiple times. Columbus police say he's still in the hospital and has yet to appear in court. Then Thursday, March 27th, Lucas County commissioners voted to form a task force to look into Lucas County Children's Services. The goal, according to Commissioner Pete Gerken, to restore trust between the community and Children's Services in response to Kei'Mani's death.
Now, we learned just today there will be a public funeral for Kei'Mani on Friday, April 11th. Her grandmother, Dorothy Latique, said in court that her family is working with Dale Riggs Funeral Home. Dorothy argued in court today that the original plan was to have a private and public funeral last week.
However, she says the holdup came when Kei'Mani's mother, Tiara Caston, wanted to have the right to Kei'Mani's funeral planning and estate. Tiara claims Dorothy was trying to block her from attending the funeral. Ultimately, the judge granted Dorothy the right to proceed.
And how long was your granddaughter living with you on a daily basis? For 5 years?
For the past 5.5 years, yes.
How frequently did your daughter visit?
We haven't seen her collectively since her 11th birthday, which was 2022. And my other daughter went to Cleveland to pick her up. Other than that, she claimed she had no transportation to even come to the birthday party.
So I'm sorry, you might have said this already. There would be a private funeral?
There will be a private ceremony, and then there will be a public ceremony for all of those that donated. It's our way of saying thank you. We appreciate, your gestures.
When would the private one be?
The private ceremony will be for family only.
And that would be when?
That will be Thursday.
And then the public ceremony Friday?
Correct.
And the funeral home can do that?
Yes. They're just waiting on me to get back in contact with them and let them know whether we should go forth or, if it rules in her favor, what she's going to do.
I have not resided in Toledo in 12 years. I left because of the strain between me and my mother. As I said before, I was under the impression by other family members that have been in contact with her that I was not to be invited to my daughter's funeral processions. I have been threatened, not by my mother, but by my sister, who has been steadfast, sticking to my mother. And I don't mind their relationship at all, but I have been threatened by my sister during this whole thing.
As in a lot of situations where family people aren't getting along really well, we hear different comments about things that aren't relevant to what we're doing here. But my focus today is on the statute and the items that the court's to consider. And the ones that stand out the most are close personal relationship and the reasonableness and practicality of any plans a person has for disposition. And convenience of family members and other friends wishing to pay their respects to the declarant. And based upon those three factors, it's clear to the court that the application for right of disposition filed by Dorothy Latique shall be granted. So the court will issue a entry within the next hour or so, and so we'll get that to the funeral home, and we will proceed to get this child laid to rest. And I'm not saying anybody's right here or wrong, but I'm saying based upon the factors that I need to consider, those factors weigh in favor of you having the right of disposition. Basically, a lot of it's a close personal relationship. You raised this child.
No further details have been released about the public funeral, just that there will be a private service for family on Thursday. That is not open for anyone else to attend. Then the public event will be Friday. We'll share details on that as soon as we get them here on WTOL 11 Plus and WTOL.com, along with our social media channels.
Lucas County Children's Services says it is bound by state law what it can and cannot say. Director Randy Muth explained at a news conference today that he cannot release personal details or anything that could interfere with the criminal investigation. He did note that his agency serves 8,500 children and received 13,000 allegations of child abuse and neglect just last year. Now, Lucas County Children's Services is working with the state to make sure this case is handled properly.
As director of Lucas County Children's Services, I'd ask that you remember our staff as they go out into the community every day to provide services, safety, and supports to the complex dynamics of family need when social crisis occurs. I've seen how deeply this tragedy has affected them, and I thank them for their continuing compassion, work, and the heroism that they do every day. We're aware that the community is looking for answers. It's absolutely appropriate to do so, and the community is entitled to them. We want them too. To that end, we are conducting an internal review to see if anything could have been done or should have been done to prevent this tragedy. Immediately after I learned of Kei'Mani's murder, I asked the Ohio Department of Children and Youth, that's the state agency that has supervisory authority over all local county-level child protection agencies, to conduct a formal on-site review of the services we provided to this family and our policies, procedures, practices, and protocols as they were applied to this case. We'll be able to share the results of both of those reviews as soon as they're completed.
As the investigation into Kei'Mani Latique's murder continues, Lucas County Children's Services is addressing questions about its previous involvement with the teen and her family. The agency confirms it received 2 separate reports of alleged physical abuse by Kei'Mani's grandmother more than a year before she was killed. Executive Director Randy Muth outlined the steps taken during those investigations and emphasizes no one, including family or community sources, ever mentioned the man now charged with Kei'Mani's murder.
So we received 2 separate allegations of excessive physical discipline by Kei'Mani's grandmother. The first was in December of 2023, 16 months before her murder, and the second was March of 2024, 12 months before her murder. Now you'll see on our website that we received 2 referrals in March of 2024. It's important to understand that those 2 referrals were made within hours of each other and they related to the same event. So there were not 3 separate investigations, there were just 2. One in December of 2023, one in March 2024. Prior to those 2 referrals in December of 23 and March of 2024, the last involvement we had with Kei'Mani occurred in 2011 when she was an infant. Further, at no point in our involvement with Kei'Mani was there any mention of Darnell Jones by anyone in the family, by anyone involved with the family, or by anyone associated with the schools. Again, as I said, both investigations alleged that grandmother had used excessive physical discipline. Those investigations were initiated on the very same day that we received the calls. Both investigations involved reviewing the family record, including identified family members, speaking directly with the persons who made the reports, a physical inspection of the home and the living conditions, speaking with the child alone, speaking with collateral sources. These are people who know the family but don't live in the home, doing background checks, application of state-mandated family assessment and safety assessment tools, and then sending letters to the mandated reporters when our investigation was complete. In both investigations, both Kei'Mani and her grandmother stated that the household consisted of just them. Neither mentioned Darnell Jones, neither identified him as a father of the child, and neither said that he was a support for the child or the father. And again, none of the referral sources nor the collateral sources we spoke with ever mentioned a father nor mentioned Darnell Jones. No record exists which establishes paternity of Kei'Mani, not with Darnell Jones nor with any other person. There was, back in 2011, an alleged father who was excluded by genetic testing. Subsequent to that, though, there has been no efforts that we can discover to identify a father of Kei'Mani. At the conclusion of both those comprehensive investigations, a team decision was made where it was determined that it would be inappropriate to ask the juvenile court to remove Kei'Mani from her current caregiver. That team decision was made by the supervisor of the caseworker, and in consultation with those documents and tools that I indicated. I think it's important to understand that almost no decision here at Lucas County Children's Services is made by one person alone. Instead of seeking or asking the juvenile court to remove Kei'Mani from the care of her grandmother, we provided short-term services and referred the family to other community supports. Again, our last referral of child abuse or neglect with respect to Kei'Mani was received on March 21st, 2024, more than 1 year prior to her murder.
The executive director of Lucas County Children's Services says he's aware of reports that other people called in involving Kei'Mani, but his agency doesn't have any record of that. So he's asking anyone who believes they may have called Lucas County Children's Services regarding Kei'Mani within the past year to call the Family Center hotline. That number is 419-213-3833. That number is also on your screen. This is a different number than the agency's child abuse prevention hotline.
As the community continues to mourn the loss of the little girl, questions have surfaced about her safety leading up to her death and whether there were any red flags that potentially were missed. During a recent news conference, Lucas County Children's Services responded to concerns about Kei'Mani's grandmother, including prior reports, disciplinary practices, and whether the young girl ever expressed fear or discomfort about her home life. Officials also addressed how they assess a children's safety when concerns of abuse come up.
Question for you about Grandma. Did Grandma have kids in her care, and did she have any kids removed from her care by Children's Services?
Yeah, unfortunately that exceeds the statutory authority I have. I can only talk about this particular case.
Okay, because I've heard concerns from people that were children taken and they couldn't figure out why Kei'Mani was still there.
Yeah, unfortunately I'm only allowed to talk about Kei'Mani's case.
Okay. In the discussions that investigators had with her, did she deny that there was any abuse in this 23 and 24 interaction? Can you describe to us what she was saying to your investigators?
Well, you use the term abuse, which is actually a legal term. Grandmother did indicate and did admit that she had used physical discipline.
And was Kei'Mani okay with it?
I think Kei'Mani stated she understood the reason for it, but I don't know that she was so okay with it.
But did she ever, was she okay with what had happened to the point where she was okay staying in the home?
Yes, Kei'Mani indicated on both occasions and to school officials that she felt safe in the home.
And how do you parse that out when the adults in the room and there may be other external pressures? How do you parse out that that kid is really telling you what he or she really feels and just isn't worried about that person standing in the corner of the other room.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we speak with the child alone, and I understand that that might be different than speaking elsewhere. We also, that's why we look at other collateral sources, look at other statements that the child has made. We ask her what her supports are, and then we follow up with those.
And the grandmother has said before that, you know, she was corrected in how to properly handle situations like this, and she said that she was told, you know, one swat on the butt. Is that something that a caseworker or anyone would ever tell a guardian that that's appropriate?
Lucas County Children's Services does not endorse, and we don't recommend the use of any corporal punishment. However, Ohio law does state that that is a decision that is reserved to the parents, and that if parents decide in using their exclusive judgment to use corporal punishment, we do provide guidance on how to do that. And we would say to use, if you have to do that, use an open hand on a non-sensitive area. Don't leave marks, don't use an object.
Was there any sort of background check done into the grandmother?
Yes.
Was there anything that raised any flags based off of her criminal history?
There were not.
Kei'Mani attended multiple schools over the past few years. She was most recently at Toledo Public Spring Elementary. Children's Services said it did not receive any reports of alleged abuse from TPS, but did from her previous school, Bennett Venture Academy. That's one of the two cases it investigated. So we asked, does changing schools often raise any red flags?
You mentioned that her school needs were being met, and she had been at multiple schools, transferred multiple times. Did that raise any flags to you guys or alert you of any potential issues?
No, you know, and that point's been brought up, and that's a great point, and I understand that. No, we respect the family's ability to determine what's best. In fact, we encourage families to come together without the assistance or interference of the state of Ohio or Lucas County to do what is in the best interest of their families. And we're not going to second guess whether a child has moved 2 times, 3 times, or 6 times. As long as the child educational needs are being met, then we trust the families to make those decisions.
And can you also kind of discuss in just general terms what it takes or at what point a child is removed from a home?
Yeah, well, anytime that we believe that the child is in imminent risk of physical harm, or, well, let me back up. So if we believe that, we have 2 courses open to us. We can make a determination as to whether we believe the family can and will work with us and ensure the safety of the children. If the answer to that question is yes, then we'll try to work with the family before going to court. If the answer to that question is no, that despite the reasonable efforts that we have made, this family or this child remains at risk, then we have to go to court. It's important to understand, Lucas County Children's Services, no children's services agency in Ohio can remove children. We're the only ones who can't. Police officers can, courts can. What we have to do in that circumstance is take those facts to a neutral, impartial magistrate or judge, and that neutral or impartial magistrate or judge makes those determinations.
A number of people in the community are asking tough questions about who was and wasn't involved in Kei'Mani's life and care. That includes those questions that center around the role of the man identified as her father, Darnell Jones. Again, he is charged with Kei'Mani's murder. And Lucas County Children's Services addressed whether the agency had any knowledge of a paternal figure and how that could have impacted their investigation or placement decisions had he been identified.
If Dad was part, if it ever had surfaced in a conversation or if he had come up, would that have made your work any different? Would the caseworker have handled it any differently if Dad's listed or mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a father that's identified, we have to talk with all the principals in the case. So the identified can be 2 ways. One, established as the father in the case, and we have a record of that. Or the child can identify somebody that they view either as a father, an alleged father, or an actual father. So if either one of those things had happened, if our database had indicated we had an identified established father, we would have been required to reach out to that individual. If the child had identified, hey, this gentleman is dad, or he is a support, or I view him as dad, we would have reached out. those did not occur in December or March of last year.
And would that have changed what you would have done when it comes to a placement with her if Dad had surfaced?
No, I suppose it depends on what we would have learned. From whoever was identified as Dad. But no, I mean, we determined that the placement there was appropriate. All the basic needs of the child were being met. She was getting all of her sustenance, her housing conditions were fine, her school and medical conditions were being met. So the presence of a father would not have caused us, I think, to recommend to the juvenile court that they change custody or placement.
Leadership from Lucas County Children's Services is pledging change and compassion. Suzette Cowell is the head of the agency's board, and she offered heartfelt condolences today.
She also took the time to outline the new task force approved by the Lucas County Commissioners and how it will examine what more could be done to protect vulnerable children and prevent future tragedies.
On behalf of my colleagues on the board, I want to once extend our condolences to everyone who knew and loved Kei'Mani Latique. Losing her at the age of 13 is a community tragedy and leaves a hole that will never be filled. Our board, staff, and caseworkers feel any child's death to their core. We stand with you, heartbroken. We are so grateful to the Toledo Police Department for finding the alleged perpetrator so quickly. And we are grateful to the Lucas County prosecutors for the hard work that they are doing to investigate this matter. Their work to bring this person responsible for this heinous crime to justice is of a paramount importance and will assist them, and we will assist them in any way we can. Kei'Mani's death reminds us of how vulnerable children are. We pledge to redouble our efforts to protect them. Every step will rely on close relationships in the community. The task force created by Lucas County Commissioners is a good example of that. I know the community is closely following this. I think it's important that people understand that my involvement, along with Robin Reese and Brenda Osborne, are subject matters experts whose job is to get this task force started. A wide selection of community members will eventually form the working task force.
The committee that you're working on in this task force, how much of the public is going to be involved? The three of you are kind of at the front of it right now. How much are you going to be hearing from the public? How much are you going to be including them in the task force?
Honestly, we've been hearing from the public, just with our three names being mentioned, we have been hearing from the public, but
do you want the public involved in it?
I'm sure, definitely.
What is the tone? What are people saying to you? What are you getting from the public?
That they're comfortable that we're looking into this, that there's going to be a task force established. I've heard positive things.
And what do you want to get out of it? And when we look back in 9-10 months, what are you hoping that the public will get out of it, you will get out of it, he will get out of it?
Is that Children's Services loves the children of this community, and we take very good care of the children in this community. All of us working together.
Do you hope that there will be, if there are any deficiencies, that they can be addressed?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
There's no official timeline that has been announced for that task force at this time, but we're told we should expect an announcement coming out within the next week.
We want to thank you for joining us as we continue to follow Kei'Mani's life and death. Her story is one that has left a lasting mark on the Glass City. A young life gone too soon with so many questions still unanswered.
WTOL 11 Plus will continue to follow every development in this case as investigators work towards justice.
Children's Services believes that it vetted each instance of Kei'Mani's care when it was called in to them. But tonight, there's a push to make sure that all of those calls went to the right place. The shocking death of Kei'Mani Latique has lots of people asking for answers to lots of questions. And Tuesday, we got some answers. Lucas County Children's Services met her twice in person, once in December of 2023 and March of 2024, on reports of excessive physical discipline from Kei'Mani's grandmother.
At the conclusion of both those comprehensive investigations, a team decision was made where it was determined that it would be inappropriate to ask the juvenile court to remove Kei'Mani from her current caregiver.
Children's Services says it has no record of anyone reporting abuse after that March visit and before her murder. They did not find any information showing Kei'Mani was in a dangerous situation.
We determined that the placement there was appropriate. All the basic needs of the child were being met. She was getting all of her sustenance, her housing conditions were fine, her school and medical conditions were being met.
We now know her story had a tragic end, and her father, Darnell Jones, is accused in her murder. Children's Services says his name did not come up in any of the interactions with the child or the grandmother.
Neither mentioned Darnell Jones, neither identified him as a father of the child, and neither said that he was a support for the child or the father. And again, none of the referral sources nor the collateral sources we spoke with ever mentioned a father nor mentioned Darnell Jones.
Kei'Mani's death reminds us of how vulnerable children are. We pledge to redouble our efforts to protect them.
Children's Services Board President Suzette Cowell says the task force looking into children's services as a whole will be taking citizen feedback on the department. Details of that are coming soon. In the meantime, an internal investigation into Kei'Mani's case will happen here in Lucas County and by the Ohio Council of Children and Youth.
Because a man named Darnell Ogletree, someone with a violent record, someone the system already knew was dangerous, was still walking free. And now she's gone. And I need y'all to see exactly how badly this was mishandled. Let's go back to 2021. In October 2021, Darnell Ogletree, who also went by Darnell Jones, was hit with multiple felony gun charges in Vermillion, Ohio. He was charged with having weapons while under disability, which means he was already banned from owning firearms. He had a defaced firearm, serial number scratched off, and was improperly handling a gun in a motor vehicle. That alone should have been enough to keep him locked up. But what did the system do? They gave him a $15,000 personal bond. He didn't even have to pay to get out, just signed some paperwork and walked free. Then, just a month later, in November 2021, Lorain County filed another set of felony charges. Same pattern. Weapons while under disability, concealed carry, defaced firearm again, improper handling of a weapon. So now this man has two separate open cases in different counties, both involving illegal firearms. And the court still didn't take him seriously. They let him stay out while they scheduled pretrials and jury dates. Fast forward to June 2022, he doesn't show up, completely skips his pretrial hearing. And the court's response? They issue a warrant and say they'll notify him by mail. Mail. Like he's going to check his mailbox and turn himself in. After that, he ends up in and out of jail on other charges. They keep rescheduling hearings, pushing things back, and nobody's keeping him locked down. Nobody's treating this like the serious situation it is. It wasn't until December 21st, 2022, over a year after his indictment, that he finally pled guilty. But even then, the system didn't hold him the way they should have. He served his time, and eventually, they let him back out. And now here we are, March 2025. And this same man, the one with a long record, the one who already skipped court, the one they knew was armed and dangerous, he's the one who took Kei'Mani's life. A 14-year-old girl, killed just days before her birthday. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't unpredictable. The system had every warning. They had the chance to stop him. Not once, but multiple times. And they didn't. How many red flags did they need? He had illegal guns. He had charges in 2 counties. He skipped court. He had warrants, and still, they let him go. Now a little girl is gone. Kei'Mani should be here. She should have been celebrating her birthday. Laughing, living, dreaming. But instead, her name is attached to a tragedy that never should have happened. This isn't just about Darnell Ogletree. It's about a justice system that failed to protect her. Say her name, Kei'Mani. We don't forget. We don't stay silent, and we won't let this slide.
I'ma jump. Fuck it. Just into our newsroom, the Toledo man accused of killing his own daughter has been released from the hospital and is now in custody. According to the Franklin County Sheriff's Office, Darnell Jones is at the James A. Carnes Correction Center on High Street in Columbus. He is accused of abducting and killing his own daughter, Kei'Mani Latique. Court records show he was officially booked today and is due to appear in court in the coming months.
We are actually out here cleaning up some of the old balloons, some of the old flowers. We are out here cleaning up Kei'Mani's memorial. We are also out here, there was a post that was in one of the groups that thankful to the neighbor. Her name is Anita. Thankful to her for allowing us to be able to use her yard and to use her fence. So we are out here respectfully.